Democratic Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey, of course, a ranking member on the Foreign Relations Committee. Thank you for being here.
Good to be here.
So it's not just one stay. A number of these stays are being looked into on the House side by the Judiciary and the Oversight Committee. I guess my question to you is, even if it were somehow less expensive to stay at Turnberry than, you know, a Holiday Inn sort of level hotel, would it be acceptable? Because we heard the Air Force say over the weekend they're looking into it because, quote, we must still be considerate of perceptions of not being good stewards of taxpayer dollars.
Absolutely. I think that in that respect, they're right. I also doubt that it's cheaper to be at Turnberry than any place else. And enriching the president should not be the job of the U.S. military or the United States government. That's why we have an emoluments clause, to ensure that the president doesn't get enriched while he is in office. And so this is a continuing saga, not only in the context of the military, but in so many other elements. The president wanting to hold the next G7 summit at his establishment, you know, all of these foreign entities going to his hotels. That just isn't happening by chance.
As you noted, there is a pattern here. Bob Barr is holding a holiday party at a Trump-owned hotel. We know that foreign dignitaries will often stay there. Not clear there's a quid pro quo, but the impression is we stay there. Maybe that's a good idea. You mentioned the G7. We have this. I imagine folks at home were saying, we keep seeing this happen. Beyond publicizing it, what can lawmakers do about it?
Well, I think over on the House side, where the Democrats have a majority, there's actually a pursuit by the relevant committees looking into this as part of their overall inquiry into President Trump, both on questions of the possibility of high crimes and misdemeanors, as well as the emoluments clause, enriching himself through the government, and other elements. So I think that course of events is ultimately what's going to produce the facts to make a determination.
The president was planning to meet with Taliban leaders at Camp David this weekend. We now know that because he publicly announced it and canceled it on Twitter over the weekend. We also now know this morning that it was against the advice of his vice president and his national security advisor, John Bolton, especially because it was so close to 9/11. You call this high-wire personal diplomacy. Just in July, the UN Security Council again wrote, quote, Al-Qaeda considers Afghanistan a continuing safe haven for its leadership, relying on its long-standing and strong relationship with Taliban leadership. Al-Qaeda, Taliban support in Afghanistan, this meeting so close to 9/11. Should the administration host this meeting in the future? Because Pompeo made clear yesterday it's not off the table.
Yeah, well, look, this has been an ill-conceived process from my perspective. First of all, you're negotiating with the Taliban, but you're not including the Afghan government. There can be no peace and security in the future unless you include the Afghan government, number one. Number two is to bring the Taliban on the eve of the 18th anniversary of September 11th is about as outrageous as it gets. But this is about the president who is more interested in sizzle than substance. High-wire diplomacy, as I've said, without a safety net and without consequences. At the end of the day, we all want to see our soldiers back, but it has to be back honoring the lives and national treasure that has been spent in Afghanistan and in creating an environment in which there's security for the United States moving into the future. And so a one-sided negotiation where you are giving before you even get a peace agreement is pretty ironic.
The president was having sort of at the same time, the plan was to have it with the Afghan government as well and hope to get the two of them together. But that has not proved fruitful in the past.
But before this, Poppy, all of these negotiations with the Taliban, I've met with President Ghani once during this period of time. He was not engaged. He was not informed. It's only at the end, if you negotiate with one side of the parties and you leave the other side out, what does it tell the Taliban? Yeah. We want to make a deal with you. We don't care what the Afghan government does. And at the end of the day, that's not how you create peace and security.
Let me ask you, gun control is a priority for you. You're pushing a bill called the Keep America Safe Act that would limit magazine size to no more than 10 rounds. This, of course, has been so key in a number of the shootings. You look at Dayton, for instance, it was more than 100 rounds. I mean, it's a magazine I've never seen even in war zones. Are there enough Republican senators, because of course this is going to live or die by Mitch McConnell's decision here, but also the president, Do you have Republican support for a measure like that?
I think so. Look, you saw Roy Blunt this weekend say the president needs to define what he's willing to support. I don't believe this is the way the Congress acts. The way the founders created the Constitution is a check and balance. Congress passes legislation. The president has the right to sign it or veto it, and then we can override it. But at the end of the day, being paralyzed by the president, who is paralyzed along with Leader McConnell by the NRA, who's taken over $1 million in campaign contributions from the NRA, is not the way the Congress is supposed to work. Overwhelming the American people in poll after poll, most recently, have expressed, Republicans, Democrats, and independents alike, that they want to see universal background checks. Would have stopped the Odessa shooter if it had been in place, because he tried to get a gun in the legal process and it was denied. He got it to a private sale that would have been subject to universal background checks. And high-capacity magazines are about high-capacity killing. You don't need 100 rounds in a magazine to go hunting for deer.
Yeah.
Senator, Jim brought something up to me this morning that I think really warrants attention, and that's Facebook. You have proposed forcing Facebook to block gun sales on its marketplace platform. Talk more about that and about, I mean, if you think Facebook has abdicated responsibility on this front.
Well, you know, Facebook did something that I thought was good, that they said they weren't going to allow gun sales on their marketplace. But then they are allowing everything that basically amounts to that. So what happens now? On Marketplace, somebody says, I'm selling a gun box or a gun pouch. For $400, $500, $700. What it really means, I have a gun inside, and have a private conversation with me, and I'll tell you what's inside. So Facebook can do much more to ensure that what they said they were going to do, they do, because it shouldn't be with a click of a mouse that you can get a gun that doesn't go through an inspection.
Just incredible to imagine. Senator, always appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Thank you.